morning drawing class. The day that I'm filming this is Tuesday, March 24th. Days hardly matter anymore, so it's hard to keep track. I just thought we could take a look at this little packet that I put together for you. If you were there on Friday, 2 weeks ago at school, I gave you one of these. But if you weren't there, don't panic, don't worry. I'm going to go ahead and put this on the class notebook in Teams, and I'll also email it out as a PDF if you want. If you have a printer, great, you can print it out. If not, all it really is for what we're working on today is some value scales. So you can just draw those. You can just grab a ruler, draw yourself a rectangle, and split it up. If you don't have a ruler, just grab something that you can use as a straight edge. Maybe it's an envelope and you can just use the edge of it. You can use, part of like a note card. You can use a lid to your colored pencils. You can use anything that has a straight edge and just use that as a ruler or just freehand it. No big deal. So we are going to be learning about different styles of tattoos, which is actually going to be really fun. But for now, we're just going to do some review of like colored pencil techniques that we learned at the beginning of the year. So I don't know if you guys remember, but we learned about some chromatic shading. So that's what we're going to be working on today. We're going to work on chromatic shading. In the instructions that I have up here, it says use the colors listed in the tables below to create a value scale for red, yellow, blue, and I think there's a green one maybe. Now, we're in quarantine, so you might not have the colors listed below, and that's okay because even in class, even under normal circumstances, I always tell students that it's okay to swap out the colors because it doesn't really matter which red you're using for a red value scale. It totally doesn't matter. Now, I was noticing that I don't know where my box of Prismacolors went. Normally I have like the 48 pack, but I just moved and your girl has no clue like where they are. So I actually found I have like a 24 pack, but I'm missing some of the colors, and also some of the colors I have in here are duplicates. So I think that that is a good representation of where we're all at. We don't know where our stuff is, and that's okay. We're gonna work with it. I did find another pack of colored pencils I have. These are like a Van Gogh pack that my dad actually got me for Christmas a few years ago, but these are watercolor pencils, but I'm just gonna use them like when I don't have a yellow, because for some reason I don't have a yellow, but I've got a gold and a silver. I find those useless, but oh well, it is what it is. So if you don't have fancy pants colored pencils, no worries. If you just have some random colored pencils, some Crayolas, some Rose Arts, some whatever you got laying around, if you have a younger sibling, maybe like go raid their bedroom, give it a shot. I think what we're doing, chromatic shading, which is blending colors together, that's going to be perfect to do like whatever you have. So the very first one on here is a red value scale, and it says to use crimson red or poppy red, but like I said, we're just going to use whatever we have. The colors that we're going to be using, if we think about a color wheel, I had to draw one because I don't have one at my house. We're going to be using reds, obviously, because it's a red value scale, but we're also going to be using green. So when these colors are opposite each other, that's called complementary colors. And we use complementary colors when we want to create value. So if I want to make a darker version of red, I'm not just going to press harder with my red, I'm actually going to layer it with green. I'll make a green base layer, and then I'm going to put my red colored pencil over it. Okay, so I'm going to bring you on down here so you can kind of see what we're working with. I put a book underneath. This is a Adventure Time book. My cousin actually used to work on Adventure Time doing storyboards, which is pretty cool. So he always would send me these for Christmas. So if we're looking at this lovely, lovely worksheet, this is our red value scale, and I think it's easiest to start in the middle to start with your hue. So if we're going to start with our hue, then what I suppose we should do, it says to mix crimson red and poppy red. But if you only have one red, just use that one red. Your hue is like your pure color. So if you only have one, just use one. Fortunately, I do happen to have two. This is like this is a Blick colored pencil, so it's not even a Prismacolor. It says it's Carmine Red. I actually used to have an uncle named Carmine. How odd. All right, let's see. Actually, my Uncle Carmine, kind of famous. Carmine Infantino was one of the original illustrators of Batman. So one of my uncles, he actually illustrated some of the original Batman comic books, and also the Flash. That's what he is really known for, was illustrating the Flash. All right, so here's my little base layer of Carmine Red, and then this one is Poppy Red. So I'm gonna go ahead, and I'm trying to be consistent, you know, as best I can with how I'm laying this down. It is best practice to use that technique of circularism, so you can kind of see I'm moving my pencil tip in little circular motions, and I'm just trying to get a really nice even hue. And what I mean by that is, like, I don't want a lot of that paper showing through. When we see that little white spots in the paper showing through, that's called tooth. And, you know, tooth is a good thing sometimes, but for our hue, we want it to be really pure. I just switched back to my Carmine Red, and I'm layering some of that. I'm trying to get a saturated hue. Hue means pure color, so I want this to be the most colorful. All right, that's looking pretty good to me. I would say that the big mistake that I see students make is they just don't layer enough. Usually when you're first learning, when I like walk around and see people doing this, when we do it in person in class, I always notice people tend to go pretty light, and that just doesn't really produce a very striking drawing. So really layer as much as you can. You'll notice, like, at a certain point, your paper won't allow any more pigment to be absorbed because there'll be so much like wax and pigment on the paper that it just won't accept anymore. So, you know, try to push it to that point if you can. Sometimes actually it'll like make a squeaky noise because there's so much wax and pigment. So you can always do a little squeak test. It might dye your finger a little bit. That looks pretty good to me. That's a good looking hue, I feel. Let's see, our next one, what's it say here? If we go this way towards tint, then a tint means you're going to add white to your color. So that's going to give us like pink tones. It's going to be a light end of our value scale. And then this one, this is where we are adding our grass green. Okay, so that's our complementary color. They've also added in violet, and violet is going to give you a deeper hue. If you look at a color wheel, red and violet, they are next door to each other. So that's going to help create a red violet. Now this is just a simple color wheel that I drew, but if you have a color wheel that includes secondary colors, then in between violet and red, you'd have a color called red violet. In between red and orange, you'd have a color called red orange. In between orange and yellow, yellow orange. You probably get it. We talked about this earlier in the year. So let's go ahead. Let's make, do we want to make the boring one, which is like add white, or the exciting one? I want to make the exciting one because you only live once, you know? So let's see. I'm going to need Parma Violet. I actually have that one. It's kind of like a light purple, but use what you got, you know? And then grass green. I think that I have a grass green. This is apple green. This is grass green. Wow, grass green's pretty dark. It's like a true emerald color green. So I'm going to put them down in the order that it lists it. Let's see. It tells me to put down some violet first. So I will warn you, you do want to go pretty light with this because that violet, obviously it's not red. And this is a red color wheel. So if you do it too dark, it's going to look really flippin' weird. Okay, so I have a really light layer of violet. Now I'm going to do a really light layer of green. I'm not trying to make this crazy. We want this to be a red value scale, so it will look very odd if all of a sudden it becomes a green value scale. Like, that wouldn't make a lot of sense. Okay, now I'm starting to layer in my reds. My reds got buried under my book. Here it is. Lovely. You guys are watching this in the future, which is kind of crazy. So like I said, today's Tuesday. I walked my dog this morning. This is the first day after the governor called a shelter in place in Washington. And I just walked my dog around my neighborhood this morning, and there was absolutely no one outside. I saw maybe two people going on a run, and they both had dogs, but I just stayed like a block away from people. I walked past a couple parks in my neighborhood, and I noticed that there's caution tape up around the playground structures, which is kind of freaky. But I suppose that's good because, you know, a lot of people touch those areas, you know, because monkey bars and that sort of thing. So I'm wondering what it's like for you guys, future you, who are watching this next Tuesday. That'll be 1 week from today. All right, so if we come take a look, you can see these are pretty different in color. Like this is definitely more earth tony. Right now, I feel like this is so bright and this is a lot lighter. I think what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna sneak in another layer of the purple really lightly. And you want, oh, I'm getting a phone call. We don't want a phone call right now. There we go. All right, so I'm gonna sneak in a little bit of purple kind of lightly. Sometimes when I look at people's value scales, it'll look like, you know, it's really green in the corner, but it's like more red up here. You want it to be even, creating a nice even mixture. All right, I actually put in some green too, so I did green and red. And now I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna try to get the saturation of this quite a bit brighter. So I'm layering in my reds, both of them, even though the two reds I have, they're honestly pretty similar. I wish I had kind of a more, like a true red, like a jewel tone red, but we're just doing our best, you know, that's all right, that's all we can do. All we can do. Actually, that looks good. I'm kind of vibing with this. It looks a little bit like brown, I suppose, but that's what we're going for. On our next one, let's see what is the difference. This one that I just did is Parma Violet, Grass Green, Crimson Red, and Poppy Red. The next one, they did Parma Violet, Regular Violet, Grass Green, Crimson Red, and Poppy Red. So they actually added in this purple as well, which is like a darker purple. Now, if you don't have a darker purple, perhaps what you could do, actually I'm going to keep it in order. It told me to do light purple first. And what you could do, you could throw in like a blue if you wanted, because blue and violet, they're pretty darn close to each other. Sometimes I like to use indigo actually, which looks like a navy blue. Or if you don't have either of those colors, you know, just stick with it. Just add more of the Parma Violet and more of the Grass Green, and that'll give you a different tone. So actually, I got this lesson from another art teacher, so I didn't create it, but I kind of think of it as like, okay, these are just some recommendations. It's not like it's a strict recipe that you have to follow. It's just the concept of, you know, mixing them. All right, so this time you can tell I've gone a little bit darker with those initial layers because I want this value to change. Now, if you're not sure kind of like what the value is supposed to match, there's a white to black value scale up here. So you're kind of trying to match that saturation to the top. All right, so I've got my base layers in there. I'm gonna start layering in my reds. Red, 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 red. Very good. I wonder, you know, if you didn't have colored pencils at your house, you could try this with maybe some sort of other art material, some sort of other drawing material. If we kind of think about the different art supplies we used in class, I'm trying to think what would be similar or produce interesting results. I wonder if you could do it with like dry pastel. I wonder if that would be interesting. Or I also kind of think maybe, oh my goodness, I just threw my pencil. That's okay. Got a backup. I wonder if crayons would, actually I know crayons would do this because sometimes honestly when I go to a restaurant with friends, I like to get a kids menu because I like to color while we're waiting. It's just kind of a fun thing for me that I like to do. And crayons, you know, they only come in like 4 colors when you go to a restaurant, so I always blend them. So if you've got a pack of crayons at your house, you could totally do this just for funsies. Look at that! It's getting darker and darker. I love it. This one, no changes really, I guess. Oh no, they kicked out the Parma Violet, so no more light violet. And this time they threw in a violet blue. I don't really have violet blue, I don't think. Oh my gosh, I do. I don't really consider this violet blue. This just looks like royal blue to me, but I guess that's why I'm not the colored pencil namer. Don't you feel like that would be one of the most fun jobs? Like being the person who names the colors for art supplies or paint colors. I always thought that would be a good job. I wonder if that really is somebody's like full-time job. If so, what kind of degree did they get to do that? Because it seems like a good gig. Okay, I'm throwing in the blue. Now it tells me I should use some dark green. I will say, this chromatic shading, it is very tedious. But this is how you produce photorealism style drawings. And a lot of people, like professional artists, they don't use black in their artwork to make their colors darker. Because a lot of people think that black is not like a natural color, like you don't really find it in nature. So artists sometimes they don't use it. So this is how you create those darker tones without using black. You can kind of tell, like this looks like it's black, but it's not really. It's just optical blending. So your eyes are blending all of these colors together. I will say this was not looking very red. I think I was a little heavy-handed with that green, but that's okay because tones, like your darkest tone on a value scale, when it's a color value scale, it always is kind of muddy and weird anyways. Like it's always kind of a gross, yucky color. But, you know, that's not too bad. I like what I got here. That looks pretty good to me. Yippee-yi-yo-ki-yay, look at that, nifty. So those are my tones, my 3 tones. Here's my hue. We're going on over to tint land. I'm going to use a very special colored pencil, a white colored pencil. So all of these 3, they're using the same 3 pencils, white, crimson red, and poppy red. But they have a white base layer because that's going to kind of create like a little mixing action for you where the pigments of your colored pencils will start to mix on top. So I'm just putting down a layer of white, and you can't see it because my paper's white, but trust in me that it's there. Oh, you know what? If you don't have paper, like plain drawing paper at home, you could use some printer paper if you want, or if you don't have that, you could draw on back of an envelope. I do that a lot just because I like to recycle. Or you could draw on a receipt, or you could try drawing on a paper bag. Even though those are brown, I feel like that could actually produce interesting results for chromatic shading. Because chromatic shading is all about that base, you know, all about that base layer. So if your base layer is brown, I think it could actually look kind of fancy. Oh, this looks very streaky. I didn't apply this very carefully. That's okay, learn from my mistakes. I'm trying to get this pretty close to the hue color because I know if I go too light too soon, then these ones are gonna look awkward. I think that's pretty good. Okay, let's see. Now we'll do an even lighter one. The reason I put a book underneath my drawing is because colored pencil, it tends to pick up the texture of whatever's underneath it. And I have this wood table that has like seams in it. So I knew that if I drew over those seams where the 2 boards touch, then I'd have a line running through my paper. So drawing on top of a smooth surface is really helpful, like a book or a magazine or a stack of newspaper. It's just something that's smooth because it picks up whatever texture is underneath. Looks good to me. And then super duper light one, try to get ourselves like a peachy pink tone. All right, I think maybe to really sell these guys, maybe I'll put a little layer of white on top of them because that's just gonna blend it out real nice. If you don't have white, you could skip that step and just try to use really light pressure, although I will say having a white is kind of wonderful. If you want to order yourself a pack of colored pencils on Amazon, I really recommend the Prismacolor brand. They're my absolute favorite, and honestly, just like get yourself like a 12 pack because chromatic shading is where it's at. And if you know how to shade with chromatic shading, then you don't need the 42 pack at all because you'll be able to mix infinite colors using these techniques. All right, so that's my completed red value scale. Let me see if I can show it to you a little bit closer. Hello again, I miss you so much. All right, this is my chromatic value scale. Pretty good. Below it, there's one for yellow. And if we think about that color wheel again, we can predict that probably you're going to use, I would guess you're going to use purple again, but maybe you'll use some orange. Let's see. You're going to use, yeah, it says you're going to use orange, you're going to use violet. So the way I knew that was because yellow and purple are complements, they're opposite each other. And then we also learned that it's going to use the neighboring color. I guess I could have used green, but I just thought that would make it look weird. So that's how I predicted that it was going to use orange. So there's a yellow value scale for you to practice. There's a blue value scale for you to practice, a green, and a violet. Just do whatever ones you can do with the colors that you have. And if you don't have colors, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. All right, so I will talk to you guys again soon. We'll kind of take a look at maybe how to do some more in-depth ink shading, some review of ink shading together. I hope you have a wonderful day and you're staying safe, and I'll see you soon.